fun. Let's use quotes with that, fun. And how things are going is questionable. Closer, oh look, we just pulled the needle out. Wow, I really almost just purled the start of that cable. Let me try that again. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new to my channel. I'm Courtney, and this is my life of projects where I share with you all of my crafty things, as well as my life here in Vermont. So if you watched last week's video, then you will know that I'm going to try something this week to get back on track with my cider sweater progress. If you've ever watched the booktube side of YouTube, you've probably seen 24-hour readathons. I'm a huge reader. I'm addicted to books. And so I thought it would be fun, let's use quotes with that, fun, to try to do a 24-hour-ish knit-a-thon. So there are a couple different ways of doing this. One would be staying up for 24 hours and knitting as much as I can in that window. That seems, at least in my personal opinion, like a terrible idea for me. I think my hands would hurt. I think that would be awful. And I would be miserable with no sleep because I already struggle with insomnia as it is. I don't want to make it worse. So we're not doing that. I'm not staying up for 24 hours. This is not that kind of 24-hour knit-a-thon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to knit for 24 hours on the cider sweater during this video. So in the span of about a week, roughly 6-ish days. So I did start last night. Last night was Wednesday. I got a little bit of knitting done and just kind of got myself set up for this. I didn't film any of it, but I'm going to show you what the plan is. What I'm planning to do is use the timer on my phone to time how long I'm knitting each day. And I also did the math. If I do 6 days, I need to knit roughly 4 hours a day to have 24 hours done by the end of this video. That's a lot. I have some ideas of how I'm going to find 4 hours in a day. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then the other things that I did, I put this marker on the stitch that I was on when I started my 24-hour timer on my phone. So I did 2 rows last night, just in kind of preparation for this to make sure like this was a decent way to track it. So I'll be able to show you at the end of the video how much knitting I got done in that 24-hour time span of knitting. I also made a little mark on the piece of paper that I'm using to track what row I'm on. So I'll be able to see also how many cable repeats that I got done in this 24-hour time frame. So that is the plan for this week's video. So definitely keep watching if you want to watch me struggle because there are a few confounding factors we're going to have to deal with. One of which is I actually am going out of town this weekend. I'm driving down to the Hudson Valley. I have a consultation appointment for a tattoo I'm getting, and I'm going to stay with some friends, and I don't know how much knitting time I will have, but I will be driving for 3.5 hours on Saturday, 3.5 hours on Sunday. So that's time I can't be knitting. Then all of the other life stuff still has to happen. I have to, do the housework, take care of the cats, do my actual work. So we're going to have to find some time. And the plan right now is I have a daily work meeting that I sometimes do knit during because it's really just a check-in with our boss to let her know like what projects need her attention, how things are going. So it's a lot of conversation. It's not a lot of like, I don't need to type anything. I'm not taking notes. So I do often knit during that meeting. So I'm going to make that a priority and make sure that I have my project in the room when the meeting starts, because usually that's what happens is it's on the couch, it's in a different room, so I don't knit. So I'm going to make sure that I have a project, so that's an hour that I will have as knitting time. So then I need to find like 3 more during each day. And some of that will be at night on the couch. I'm going to try to put my phone down and maybe even in a different room and just knit after dinner, because I usually do have a couple of hours before I need to go to bed, so I can use that time. Then I also might rearrange my schedule in the morning a little bit. We might do some no hair, no makeup days, because that would save me a solid 45 minutes. So if I don't have any meetings that I need to be like presentable for. It might just be a camera off day and I can get some knitting done maybe in the morning before work. But yeah, we'll see where I fit those pieces of knitting in, but that's the goal by the end of this video, is that I will have completed 24 hours of knitting in a week. And hopefully that should really get me a lot further along on this sweater. So that's the plan. Fingers crossed that I can fit all of that knitting in, but I will check in with you again tomorrow and let you know how far I've gotten. Okay, so it is Friday morning and I thought I would give you a quick update on how things are going, and how things are going is questionable. So I did manage to knit about 3 hours yesterday, and then I had a half hour on Wednesday, so I'm like a half hour behind where I should be. That's not awesome, but I'm hoping to catch up today because this Friday is actually knit night with my group of knitting friends, and I may or may not go because it's like icy and gross out. So it depends on how the roads are, but either way, I have the evening free. The plans have already been made to have nothing to do this evening except for knit, either here or a knit night with my friends. So one of the two will happen. Some knitting will occur. I should have enough time. The other nice thing about Fridays is our boss often gives us a half day on Friday, so I have a half day today. But the complicating factor is that Larson has a recheck at the vet for his health issues that he has. One of the things that he has is a flare-up of an autoimmune disorder, so we just have to go recheck that and make sure everything is calming down, that the meds are working. So that's going to take up like 2 hours of my day, but I'm hoping to have a little bit more time for knitting today. I wanted to show you how far I am. So this is where I started, and so this is about 2.5, 3.5, 2.5. I'd have to look at my phone. 3.5 hours of knitting, so not too bad. I feel pretty good about it. The other thing is I realized that overnight, for some reason, the little stopwatch app on my phone like resets. So now what I'm doing is taking a screenshot of it at the end of the day to make sure I don't lose that data. The other thing that I need to deal with today is this conundrum. So I'll pop some footage in here of these two skeins side by side in better lighting. So what I have to figure out is how to blend these into the sweater. So the reason that I have two different skeins is I think I only had 6 of this one, and looking at this pattern, especially making it larger given my tight gauge, I needed 1 or 2 more skeins, so I went ahead and bought some. I may not actually need them, I might have enough. I was kind of on the edge, but always better to have more than not enough. So I don't want to wait until like I'm on the sleeves and almost done to use the brand new skein, because I can tell a big difference in these. I just want to kind of get it worked in there so it's not noticeable when if I do have to like use the whole skein. So what I'm going to do today is wind this into a cake so I can start interspersing it throughout the main body of the sweater, especially now that I've got like a decent chunk at the bottom. So I'm going to cake this one up and start interspersing it throughout the sweater now so that I have enough time to pull some yardage basically from this to compensate for possibly having too little of this one. I like the shinier one better. I really do think this is a different base. Like, tell me if you think I'm wrong. but I really feel like this is a different base. Either way, I'm gonna go ahead and get that caked up and then do the things for work, take Larson to the vet, and do knitting tonight, either here or at knit night with my friends. And like I mentioned, tomorrow I will be traveling. I am gonna film whatever knitting I manage to get done tomorrow at my friend's house, and I will check back in with you probably on Sunday. So it is now Monday morning. I am back in Vermont. I was in the Hudson Valley visiting some friends and doing a couple errands for most of Saturday and Sunday. I did still get knitting time in. We just kind of hung out and watched a little bit of TV in the evenings, and I knit at the restaurant that we went to for dinner because there was like an hour wait for a table. So that was some good knitting time. So I did the math last night and I was at like 17.6 hours. And right now I've knit for about an hour this morning. And so I'm over 18 hours. So I'm going to make the 24 hours because I still have the rest of today and tomorrow to get more knitting time in. So we're going to make it. It has not been easy. It has been exhausting to get that much knitting time into my day, but I will show you how far I have gotten. So you can see right there, that's the stitch I was on when I started, and I have done this much. So it's definitely helping to get me further along and closer. Oh, look, we just pulled the needle out. Anyway, it's helped to get me closer to the halfway point. We're still clearly not at halfway on this sweater, so I do think I'm going to have to keep pushing myself to knit at least 3 or 4 hours a day so that I can finish this sweater by the end of March, which is my goal. The other thing that I've kind of learned is I put my knitting down a lot. I know a lot of people don't put their knitting down until they are at the end of a row, but that's just not feasible in my world. Like, things happen. So lots of little things that make me put down my knitting. So I have to make a very conscious effort to continue to check off what row I'm on and read my knitting. I have had to go back a couple of times. One of the reasons I think I keep messing up a little bit is because the start of the row is right here and you just go into the moss stitch, and I am not yet at the cable portion. So a couple times I've had to go back on the cable portion because I didn't realize that's the row I was supposed to start cabling on, because I started the row, I knew I was on the purl or the knit, whatever, and I just kept going, and then I just knit like all the other rows. So what I'm doing to help myself with that is when I start on this section of moss stitch, I hang the cable hook through the first cable on the cable section. So I've already done this cabling section, I'm working on this moss stitch, so I moved the cable needle to over here. So that tells me by the time I get around to that side, and I've forgotten this is a cable row, it helps me remember that, oh, you should be cabling. So far, I've only used that trick for like the last day. That has really helped me to cable when I'm supposed to, because that's kind of the biggest place I'm messing up. I have made a few more mistakes in the moss stitch with getting off by a row or starting one of them on the purl and forgetting and starting the other one back on the knit, but that's not as noticeable to me as messing up in the cable section and not cabling when I should. So I'm happy that I've figured out a way to trick my brain into remembering what I'm supposed to be doing, because once I get started on it, I just go down the row. I don't really need to look at the pattern and look at the chart and see what I'm supposed to be doing. So by not looking at it, I don't know which row I'm on, especially if I've put it down, walked off, and come back. The other thing that I'm doing right now that I showed you in another clip earlier is adding in the newer skein. That's a, to me, slightly different base and definitely a different dye lot. I mean, they were dyed probably 10 years apart. So I have attached that skein, and I've been doing like 2 rows of the old skein, 2 rows of the new one, and kind of going back and forth. So when I look at it, especially if I lay it flat in good lighting, I can see where the rows are that I started it. I can see a little bit of the variegation. So I started right about here, and I was doing like a row of the new ball, old ball, 1 to 2 rows, and through here it looks like I didn't do that at all, even though I did. I mean, I maybe did 3 rows at the most, but that's because the old ball, old skein of yarn, either way, has variants in it too. So like you can see through here, there's some striping, some banding, because again, this is hand-dyed yarn, so it's going to have variation throughout. To me, it's a lot more noticeable in the moss stitch than it is in the cable section. Let's see if I can turn this without losing stitches. So you can see in the cables here, like there's a darker patch right here. I don't think that's a shadow. Yeah, it stays dark the whole time. So there's this section that's a little bit darker, and then even over here it's lighter, even though, again, all the same skein of yarn until right about here. And there's other variants in it as well. There's like this dark spot that's just kind of hanging out, and it doesn't really bother me. I mean, again, hand spun yarn, handmade sweater. There's also a couple spots where there's some like bright red from, I'm assuming, another dye pot that was going at the same time. So it gives it character. The other thing with it being hand-dyed yarn, there's always a little bit of bleeding that happens, even if this was washed before it was skeined up. I am hoping that when I do wash it, the differences will be minimized because there's always that little bit of dye that comes out. So I'm hoping that it does lighten up a little bit to make it less noticeable. The other thing is I was hoping that I could do that kind of blending of the two skeins for a little bit and then switch fully over. And I just don't think I'm going to do that because I think the variation is too much and it would be too stark of a contrast. So I'm just going to keep going alternating rows or every 2 rows, and then probably switch back over to the older skein. Use that primarily, but I want to at least get 1 skein's worth of the newer one worked into the sweater so that way I know I have enough yardage. That's the main concern, and I don't want to get to the end and be on the sleeves and have to do them all in the new skein because that would be way too much of a contrast. So that's how we're doing with that right now. I'm not loving having to have 2 skeins attached, but it is what it is, and I think I will be happy that I did it in the long run. So I'm going to head out here in a few minutes. I am going to head up to Burlington. I'm meeting a friend this morning to do some shopping and things, but first I'm going to probably go to Starbucks. Wow, I really almost just purled the start of that cable. Let me try that again. But because I am hungry and I need caffeine, I'm probably gonna leave like an hour before I need to and go sit in Starbucks. I also need to like go over my planner for the week and get ready for all of my upcoming trips. And yeah, just trying to like get things in order. So I might sit and do some planning stuff, sit and do some knitting before I meet up with my friend. And we're going to just do like a little bit of shopping, a pretty low-key day. I'm hoping to get back home fairly early in the afternoon. So I'm going to pack this project up and my planner and head up to Starbucks. I will definitely get some knitting done on the couch tonight and have some footage of that, maybe some footage of Burlington if I remember this time. And then I will catch up with you again tomorrow to see how close I am to 24 hours, since tomorrow is my last full day of knitting time since the video goes out on Wednesday. So fingers crossed that I continue with this progress and that the coffee helps so I can get through today. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, so this is our Tuesday night update because I was editing the video and realized that I didn't film the update today that I meant to. So I'm going to try to do this one-handed because I did not bring any of my recording stuff in here because it's pretty much bedtime. So I still have the 2 balls attached someone still really loves yarn. I think I'm still 2 or 3 hours short of my 24-hour goal. So even though it is almost bedtime, I'm probably gonna knit for a little bit longer. I am gonna like turn off all of my devices and like have no screen time, but get some knitting done before I go to bed, and then probably finish the last bit of knitting based on how much time I need to get done tomorrow morning. And hopefully the next time you see me, I will have completed 24 hours of knitting in a week. So let's go knit. It's Wednesday, and I'm done. I made it. 24 hours of knitting. So that was a lot. I will pop in the totals over here for how much I did each day. I did have to do a little bit today, so it's fine. But I made it. Wednesday to Wednesday, 24 hours of knitting. It was roughly 4 hours a day, most days. That was rough. We did struggle, but I'm glad I did it. I got 39 rows done according to my little checklist on my chart. So that's a lot. Let's look at what that progress actually looks like. So it's actually getting difficult. Oh no, I lost a stitch. So it's getting difficult to like hold this up without either losing stitches or having it like tilt. But right there is where I started, and that is how much I managed to get done. So I doubled my progress, a little more than doubled. To me, that looks like a little more than doubled, right? Right. So let's say that. So I doubled the amount that I had knitted, which is awesome. However, we're still not at halfway, which is, I need to be more than halfway because like February is over like next week. But it's looking sweatery. We have a sweater. It's going to be a sweater. We'll make it. But we are further along than when we started. So this was a useful experiment. I'm probably going to try to at least knit 2 to 3 hours a day where I can for the next couple weeks to really try to get this done by the end of March. I have a lot of travel in March, so hauling this thing all over the country is just going to be a thing I have to do, and we're going to have to deal with it and pack less of other things, I guess. But I'm really happy with the progress that I made in this week. I don't think I'm going to try to continue to knit for 24 hours. We're just going to see how much I can fit in. But now I know that if I knit 3-ish to 4-ish hours a day, I can make significant progress on this. I'm excited to get to the point that I can actually start shaping it and start the sleeves, because that always feels really good to be like almost to the end. So yeah, that's 24 hours of knitting on this sweater. There were struggles, but we made it through. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed my 24-hour knit-a-thon. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy watching me struggle, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great week.